Thank you very much, distinguished Madam Moderator, distinguished participants. I'd like to support the colleague as well as thank the IPU, our Austrian colleagues, for the great work they've conducted to prepare this conference, and most importantly for this opportunity to speak in person, without which, in my opinion, it is impossible to imagine fruitful parliamentary cooperation. The development of events in the world shows that today international relations are in dire need of an open and trusting dialogue. The coronavirus pandemic has become the largest challenge for the world community in recent decades and has exposed a number of pain spots, both in domestic policies of states as well as in international affairs. It has become even more obvious that the world is more interconnected than ever, that it is impossible for a state to confront the pandemic alone. It is impossible to achieve climate change on one continent. It is impossible to overcome terrorism alone. It is unacceptable to try to ensure the prosperity and security of some nations at the expense of others. National and bloc-based egoism is becoming one of the main obstacles to uniting the efforts of mankind. The so-called sanctions did not stop any conflicts and did not change the foreign policy of other states, but they hit the population hard, first and foremost. And in the context of the pandemic, entire countries are deprived of equal access to vital medicines, vaccines, and medical equipment. Speaking at the G20 summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin proposed for the period of the pandemic to create a so-called system of green corridors, free from trade wars and sanctions, for the mutual supply of medicines, food, equipment, and technology. Russia was the first in the world to develop a vaccine against COVID-19. Today, there are already 5 of these vaccines. They're all tested, reliable, and safe. We offered to all interested states not only the supply of the vaccines, but also of technologies for their production in those countries. Today, the Russian vaccine, Sputnik V, has been approved by 70 countries, covering a population of 4 billion people, which is more than 50% of the world's population. At the same time, we face tough resistance and unacceptable politicization of even such what would seem a humanitarian act. For Western pharmaceutical companies, this is business, but for us it's an opportunity to save people's lives. What are the attempts to impose political models on other peoples from the outside by force, without taking into account the national traditions, culture, or history, we can all observe today in Afghanistan? They turn into real tragedies. All of this, without a doubt, is the result of an arbitrary and irresponsible treatment of the norms of international law, leading to the substitution of the content of the principle of multilateralism. We believe that attempts to impose on the world community the concept of a new world order based on someone's rules that favor someone have nothing to do with true multilateralism. I'm convinced that true multilateral cooperation should be based on mutual respect and acceptance of the diversity of the world, interaction on the basis of common principles enshrined in the UN Charter. Let me remind you that collective development of these principles was the result of the hardest trials that humanity experienced in the 20th century, and actions aimed at undermining the authority of the UN and at weakening confidence in the established norms and suffering suffered during the 2 world wars create risks of repeating the tragedies of the past. Moscow's initiative to hold a summit of 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council to review the horizon of the world's development and global politics is called upon to reverse this trend.
I'm very sorry. If we can't relax the time restrictions individually, actually you've been given about 40 extra seconds already. So.